Welcome back, lovely people. I'm finishing for today and I wanted to do a quick worklog. So what I was working on yesterday and today was adapting this data format or an object that is being passed from the encoder to a tester and then hoster and stored by hoster. So we figured out that, of course, certain data we can grab from the chain. It's accessible to all of them, so we don't have to pass it from one peer to another, and also store anything additional by hoster that is not needed. So at the end, the data format is this. So type is encoded. We have encoded data signature, index, nodes for that index, and we have encoded data. And what we are encoding is a chunk, and we have a unique nonce. First, I thought we will go with the encoder ID, and this is going to be unique. But if we have the same chunk ever in the future with the same encoder ID, this doesn't make it really unique. So then I went with the amendment ID, but later also figure out no, amendment ID is really unique, but it's for all three encoders the same. So it's the same data chunk and the same amendment ID. So again, not unique. So I did like a basically combination of amendment ID and encoder position. So because all the chunks, all the encoded data from three encoders has to be the same size. We have to use encoder position instead of encoder ID, because encoder ID could be, for example, for one encoder 1 and for another one 300, and this would make the difference in the size. So here the comparison would fail. And what we're trying to do here when we're comparing, we want to make sure that the data that is being encoded, which means compressed with Brotli compression, is the same size, and we want it to be encoded with the highest Brotli compression. And in order to see if all the encoders did use the same compression, we compare the sizes. But now, because we're adding also this nonce, we also have to make sure that the nonce is unique, but the same size for each encoder. So this was now added. The last thing left in this setup is, of course, whenever I adapt any of these things, I also have to adapt it here in the storage challenge, so that when the hoster sends data to the attester and the attester verifies if everything is okay, it also needs to have this not amendment ID, but amendment ID and encoder position to be able to verify. So every little change basically makes the whole charade on all the sites. So it kept me busy for 2 days now. Okay, so yeah, the only thing that is left now is for hoster to sign that at the end, when they receive all the data and successfully store it, they need to respond back to the attester with a signed nonce, which is going to be again this amendment ID and encoder position, and then attester will send this back to the chain so that we can be sure that attester did deliver all the data to the hoster. So in the future, when we get to the storage challenge and, for example, hoster fails to respond to the challenge, we can know that the data was indeed delivered to the hoster. So the failure is strictly related to hoster not responding correctly, not storing the data, or just not being available. Because if we didn't get this signature back, we could always think that maybe, I don't know, we don't know who actually failed. Maybe a tester didn't even deliver all the data to the hoster. So it's not hoster's fault. But with this, we know that it's actually the hoster.